Welcome to the Energize, Explore, Enjoy podcast, where we bring you inspiring conversations about food, fitness, and adventure, fueled by the power of the energy pods. Let's do this! Get ready to embark on an epic adventure with Michael J Buxton, a fearless adventurer from Vermont with a burning desire to explore the world. Join us as we dive into his incredible journey of planning and finally setting off on a life-changing fatbiking trip across the 48 states. From breathtaking landscapes to unexpected encounters, get ready to be inspired by Michael's relentless pursuit of the unknown.
Hey there, listeners. This episode is sponsored by the ever-amazing KG Food Company's Energy Pods. Are you ready for a flavor adventure? Get ready to taste white chocolate strawberry, breakfast mocha noir, and the fan favorite chocolate nova. These pods are not only delicious, but also are packed with protein, healthy fats, and minimal sugar to keep you going all day. Plus, they come with a built-in spoon for your on-the-go snacking needs. So, don't wait another minute. Head over to kgfoodco.com, kgfoodco.com, and order some energy pods to fuel your life.
I was working at Home Depot, and we had a sit-down meeting, all in the same room, no masks, no plastic shields, no invisible, fairy tale stuff. And as we sat there, we all discussed the fact that everyone's got to wear a mask amongst other people. And I raised my hand and I said, well, I'm an overnight freight team. There's no way I'm going to wear a mask while I'm working because I'm going to be breathing in my own CO2. I'm just going to get lightheaded and pass out because I have a minor form of asthma. With that being said, they made a big thing about it, but as soon as night shift came, we didn't even have masks. We had little neck scarves. Then we had another meeting 6 months in. CEO announced that he's not going to demand it, but it's highly recommended that people get vaccinated. And I stood up amongst the crowd and I announced it right out loud. And I said, 2-week notice, I'm out of here. I gave my 2-week notice. I took my income tax return and a bunch of money that I saved up. I sold a bunch of my stuff too, including my car. And I bought the bike. I bought all the gear. And I got on the road and just went for it. Teamed up with a guy in Florida, longtime friend, and we rode together for a few hundred miles, and everything was great. And then I just during the beginning of 2019, Florida wasn't going along with the program, and it was probably the best travel time to take on because it was in that mediocre moment where are we really dying, or is this a planned event, or is it a hoax, is it this, is it that, and nobody really knew. So it just seemed like Florida was the only state that was fully operational through the entire time, and we had an outstanding time. It was an absolute incredible ability to go down to Key West, where there's supposed to be thousands and thousands of people, and there's nobody there. And it just made it so much better because there's no one in the way. There's no, it was absolutely awesome. Great way to see the city, the people, the places, the hotels, all that stuff.
When you started this whole thing after the Home Depot stuff, was it, did you go first to Florida or did you go straight to the West Coast?
2020 to 2021, I rode all of Florida up to Asheville, North Carolina. That was my conditioning moment to decide whether or not I could really take on something and really just go for it and do it. This time around, 2022 into 2023, and I just went for it. I packed the bags and just left. I got about 5 states in, and my friends at home, they all told me I'm not going to make it. I'm going to return home. This isn't something I do, so on and so forth. When I got to 10 states, they're like, you're going to be back. No big deal. We're not going to invest in this. It's, you'll be back. And then 15 and 20, states that I'm in now, and they're all like, wow, you're really doing this. This is incredible. I can't believe you're doing this. Here, let me help you out a little bit with this and that. And
when you first started the journey, so there's 2 trips over here. So the first one or the second one, let's just use both of them. How did you plan it out? Did you have something, did you like go on intuition, or did you have like a solid plan in your mind?
I honestly just GPS it and wing it. I just take wherever the wind takes me, I guess, is the best way to describe that.
What do you pack usually?
So I have a tent, canopy, and ground cover. I have a sleeping pad, a pillow, warm pants, warm shirt. I have a sleeping bag with a sleeping bag insert. I have a food bag. And then I have bike lock, raincoat, shave kit, first aid kit, extra supplies. I have my tent frame in the frame bag, an extra flashlight, and my tools on the bottom bag, and my backpack has all of my electronics. So if ever my bike is taken from me or someone steals it, at least I have my electronics.
What were some of the biggest challenges, or the first big challenge that you faced when you took this journey?
Biggest challenge was probably Florida, West Palm Beach to Key West. It took like almost a month to get to Key West. I was experiencing saddle sore very, very, very much. Every like 20 miles, I'm on the side of the road and I'm just laying on the road, just holding my butt because I'm in so much pain.
How do you manage your like daily routines? Like, for example, I can't even comprehend all of this stuff. Like, for example, how do you like start your, like, what's a day like for you?
Day is where I wake up around 7 or 8 a.m. I pack up the bike and, I might pack up the bike. I might just lay in the tent for a minute, kind of regather my thoughts, post some things on social media, update my website, and then pack up the tent, bike and all that, get everything rock and rolling. And I'll be on the road. People like yourself who try and set schedules or calendar dates with me that I've met previously before, and they're like, hey, you never answered your phone. It's like, I'm on the road. I don't have a set schedule where I'm going to be, or if I have Wi-Fi or, service or anything to be able to sit down and actually communicate. So, it'd be different if I'm sitting at home and sitting behind a desk and I have my daily routine of a 9-to-5 job. But out here, it's, my time is every day. It's an adventure.
Yeah, we're like we're cogs in the system. You're no longer a cog in the system anymore. During your first trip, what was like some of the really standout features about whether it was the place or the people or the food or the environment? What were some things that stood out?
Coral from Florida. I don't ever want to be around it again.
What was that?
It just gets everywhere. It's to the point where Florida is great, but I'll never go back. It's the coral sand just isn't. It just gets everywhere. If you have shoes on somehow, and you've never taken your shoes off, but somehow, and your shoes are waterproof, but yet somehow the sand got in there, and it's what a nightmare. That stuff was. The water tastes like sulfur all the time. It's so much to say that when I arrived, I was told that the air smells like sulfur, and I was, no way. And I get down there and travel around, and I didn't smell it until I kind of left Florida and got into Mississippi and Arkansas and Louisiana. It's still in those areas, and it's so strange that just drinking going to a restaurant, drinking a glass of Coca-Cola, and you're like, whoa, where did you get the water from? Oh, from the tap. It's like, is it town water or sulfur? And oh, well, there is a hint of sulfur in there because they blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So it's like, okay. But Florida, so I got to Epcot, and a friend of mine paid for me to go to Epcot. So I get to Epcot, and the entire Disney area is nothing but like military security, and there's no happiness. Everyone's wearing masks. and it was probably the most critical time for Disney World, period. That why would you even be open? There was no theme of happiness. And then you get to the food area and there's like thousands of people all sitting on the ground. And it's like, oh, wow, that's where everybody is. And the only reason they're there is because they can sit down and take their masks off. So instead of strolling around Epcot and checking out all the locations, they're all in the food yard, sitting down, eating highly expensive food and drinking highly expensive food, beverage. And I mean, a cookie is like $8, and it's not even a large cookie. It's very small. But that was a huge thing that kind of really put things into standards.
Were there some good things about it, like some good highlights about your trip over there, or was it all just like chaos? And
the keys were incredible.
Why is that?
The ocean on both sides of the road, the scenery, the people in general. I was told in the Northeast that Floridians aren't very nice people. I couldn't have met a nicer crowd of people. Bar that we went to, every hotel, every establishment that we stopped at, gas station, everybody had questions, as they do every day now. But Florida was just incredible.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I'm glad you had some good. Anything else that was really interesting during that trip?
Cow country in Florida. I did not expect that.
Why is that?
Growing up in Vermont, you're kind of just given the idea that Vermont is the cow country of the world, and that's where all the cattle comes from, and blah blah blah. And then you travel outside of Vermont, and you get to Florida of all places, and you just see nonstop rolling hills of thousands of cattle, not just a few hundred. And that was a bit of a reality check for me.
That's crazy. Do you prefer to have certain preferences in where you like to go? Do you like to be out and about in the countryside, or do you like to be closer to the city or suburbs?
In between. I mean, I can survive pretty much anywhere. So let's see. When I was in Moab heading to Bryce, I stopped at a place called Hoover's Restaurant, or Hooves. I think it was Hoover's. Hoosiers, I think. I don't know. Hoosiers or Hoover's. It was a restaurant that offered. They had campsites, they had hotels, and then they had a tubing adventure. And I asked them if I had taken a recording of their restaurant, if they would let me ride the tube down the river. And they're like, oh yeah, totally. So I did a recording of their restaurant, and then did the same thing as recording as I was coming down the river. And as I made my way down the river, I met a group of other guys that were from Las Vegas. And they told me that if I ever make it to Las Vegas, that they'll hook me up. I just have to knock on their doors. So, drinking beers and floating down the river and holding a GoPro camera and getting footage and taking pictures. And I mean, just absolutely incredible time with these guys. Luis Polish is his name, and his business is Alpha Landscapes in Las Vegas, Nevada. He builds in-ground pools and does landscaping in the Las Vegas area. When I got to Las Vegas, I reached out to him, and he paid for me to have an entire week at a hotel in Las Vegas so that I can experience all of Las Vegas for an entire week. It was absolutely insanely awesome. I would come out of my hotel room, walking down the street, and I met up with a group of guys, and we're all talking, just chatting about adventures and travel and all that. And this guy opens up a cooler and he says, "Hey, anybody want a beer?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll take a beer. How much are they?" He's like, No, give them away. Here, have a beer. And so I take a beer, and all the guys I'm with, they take a beer, and we start walking down the street, drinking beer. And there's this event thing going on in one of the hotels that they were directing people into. So I walk towards the hotel, and the doors open up, and there's a man standing there in front of a big cooler with a beer in the setting in the ice, and he's handing beer, but he's only handing beer to people that live in the hotel. So the crowd that was ahead of me, I jumped into their crowds, and the bartender hands me a beer, and I walked into the hotel, and the guys were like, "How did you get yourself another beer?" And I said I jumped into the crowd so that I looked like I was part of the family. And they're like, "Man, we need to hang out with you all night." And I said, "Okay." So on the exit of the bar on the other side of the hotel on the other side, there's another bartender there with more beer being passed out. And I said, "Hey, I got this on the entrance. Can I get a new one on the exit?" He's like, "Hey, yeah, sure." So he takes the empty, hands me a new one, and then hands all the guys that I was with beers as well. And they're all just smiling and laughing, and they thought it was the most hilarious episode ever. We get down the street a little ways, and I happen to grab a bottle on one of the concrete pillars, and I don't know why I grabbed it. I just grabbed it. And we just kept walking, and they turned to me and they're like, "What did you pick up?" And I said, "I don't know." And I look at the bottle, and it was a completely full bottle of red Sauvignon.
Nice.
And I was like, "Jesus, this is great." They're like, "Hey, you gonna pop that?" And I said, "I don't have a puller for it, so corkscrew." So they said, "Oh, maybe we'll find one." So as we kept going, they all got a phone call from their girlfriends asking where they were, and they all left. And then we got to I got to the next bar, and I met a man who was in Moab. He works at, was it Moab? No, it was Bryce Canyon. He was at the bar in Bryce Canyon, and he works at the MGM in Las Vegas. And he invited me in, and I show up to him, and he gives me two $50 coupons, one for just food and then one for just beer. And it was on the house. Like he's like, "Hey, go and explore, have a great time." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And off I went.
Oh, that's crazy, man. So when you go on any of these crazy trips, man, what are some of the biggest challenges that you normally face? Is it weather, or is it just like the social stuff, or is it related to food or living, or it's just a combination of all of the above?
I haven't really had any really bad complications with food or water or any of that. I guess my biggest challenge of this entire trip was probably going through New Mexico. New Mexico was rather strange. So I came in through from Amarillo, Texas, Cadillac Ranch, into New Mexico, Temecula, and then from Temecula up to Conchas Lake, Conchas, Conchas Lake. And from Conchas Lake, I was going to go to Raton, which is actually spelled Raton, but they pronounce it Raton, Raton. And I was going to head north to Raton and then get into Colorado that way. And when I got GPS said that I could take this route, so I took the route. I went north through Conchas Lake to the dam, and then I took this dirt road halfway until I got a flat tire from a really large goat head, and I couldn't fix it. I tried so hard to repair it, and I couldn't get it to stick to continue on. And as I was fiddling with that, two trucks pull up, and they said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Vermont." They said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm trying to get to Raton." And they said, on 450 square miles of private property. Really? And they're like, you didn't see the no trespassing sign on the way up? And I said, there is no sign. Oh yeah, there's a sign. And I said, no, there's no sign. So he looks at the bike and he looks at me and he says, he goes, let me call the ranch owner. So he calls the ranch owner, and I can already hear the screaming over the phone of how upset this guy is. And so they load the bike in the back of the truck. We get in the truck, and I said, if I'm halfway through, just take me to the other end and drop me off, and I'll continue on. You guys will never see me again. And they're like, no, we're going to take you all the way back to Conkus Lake, drop you off. So as we're riding in the truck back to Conkus Lake, he had told me that every truck is loaded with a gun. There's one in the glove, and there's one behind the seat. And I am to put a message out to the entire world that if anyone comes onto Bell Ranch, north of Conkus Lake, that you'll be basically put in the ground. So that was rhetorically mentioned to me. And the fact that I have GPS on the bike is the reason why I'm being sent back to Conkus Lake.
That's crazy.
That was probably the hardest challenge that I faced and throughout this entirety of the journey. I mean, Las Vegas homeless people, that they weren't even nothing to that experience. The people in Compton don't even begin to touch it. Getting threatened like that was pretty interesting.
Well, I was just gonna say, that's a little harsh, man. I mean, somebody who by mistake maybe just end up and with like a broken bike or something, that's a little much, man. That's too much. Yeah. Did you figure out any idea why they were so strict about that stuff?
So I rode back to once I was in Conkus Lake, I stopped at the Army Ports facility, and we were able to repair my tire, and then into the Conkus Lake area. I stopped at the local marketplace, and I had briefly mentioned it to the man behind the register, and he says, it's funny you bring that story up. He goes, I went to high school with the guy that owns Bell Ranch, and there was a time where I had to go up to Raton to visit family, and then I was going to take a little stroll into Colorado and visit some relatives up there, and then drive back to Conkus Lake, and that'd be the end of it. He said, but when I got into Bell Ranch property and started riding up through, the owner of Bell Ranch stopped me and asked me where I was going. He says, I'm headed to Raton. I'm going to visit family. And the man says, the owner, he says, because I tell you what, you can go to Raton, but you're not going to come back the way you came, the way you went. You're going to go the other way. You don't ever step foot on my property again. And he's like, man, really? We went to high school together. He's like, yep, I don't care. You're not going to come back on my property. So ironically, about, I guess, a year or two later, the owner of Bell Ranch had called Conkus Lake Fire Department and told them that 3 of his barns were on fire. And cattle was inside, and he's losing cattle and he's losing his barns. He needs help with the fire department. And ironically, he was at the time chief of the fire station. And he said, oh, excuse me, Mr. Whoever of Bell Ranch. You told me you don't want me on your property anymore. So sorry, and hung up the phone.
Oh, man, that's crazy. Holy moly. Jesus Christ, man. I mean, it's kind of like, it's a striking thing because you don't expect somebody to be that crazy, man. Usually if somebody is like, who comes to your place by mistake, you would be polite about it and tell them, hey, don't show up again. And then the second question is, how's everybody ending up in that ranch just out of nowhere? Like, is it so easy to get in there?
Well, the GPS tells you that you can go from Temecula all the way to Raton through Bell Ranch, because Bell Ranch has a zip code. So if an area of Google Maps has a zip code, a road will travel through it.
So how do you stay extra cautious about all of this navigation now that you've sort of had a first-hand experience of this craziness?
I ask ahead. Every location I get to, I ask ahead. If I come to a dirt road, I make sure I stop into a local and say, hey, is this for city travel? Is this for people to travel on? And can I go from this point to that point? It was here in California. I believe it was in Ventura. I came to there's a horse farm, and I believe it's in Ventura, and it's a huge horse farm. And there's a road that says, do not trespass. This is not for city travel. You will be arrested and blah, blah, blah. So I'm looking at GPS on my phone, and that's the only way to go. There's no other way unless I want to climb this gigantic mountain to get up over one area and then travel down into another area and then come back to the end of the same road that I would initially be on to get to the next location. And then I see two cyclists come down, and I said, hey, whoa. Can I go on this road? And they're like, oh, yeah, no problem. I said, well, what about the sign? They're like, no. As long as you stay in the road, you're fine. The minute you get off the road and you get on these people's property, then that's a problem. So I said, okay, cool. So I stayed on the road and continued on. But I'm just glad that I asked, because otherwise I'd have been climbing 3 giant hills that I didn't want to climb, and being at the top of the hill of where I would have initially just been able to ride up that one single hill, and I'd be on to the next, area to travel on.
Oh man, this is crazy. Yeah, I just, while you were talking about it, I just looked up online about Bell Ranch, and I just noticed, wow, this place is huge. It's crazy.
Yeah. 450 square miles.
That's absurd. That's huge. During your second trip, first trip was because of the COVID stuff. What prompted you to sort of go for the second trip to the West?
So I've never been out West, and I didn't want to pay for gas or electricity. So I decided the best way to experience America for what it is to just get on the bike and go.
Okay.
And so that's what I did. From Vermont down to Florida to California, and now I'm going up to Washington. And then from Washington, I'm going to go Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and then I'll do the northern tier of Colorado, like Denver, Boulder, Vail, Beaver Creek, all those areas. And then from there, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go east or if I'm going to go back north. I'm still in question of how the travel's going to go from there.
Hey listeners, before we jump back into our fascinating conversation, let's take a moment to appreciate the delicious goodness of KG Food Company's Energy Pods. These delightful pods come in a variety of amazing flavors, like white chocolate strawberry, breakfast mocha noir, and the ever-popular Chocolates Nova. And they're not just tasty, they're also packed with protein, healthy fats, and minimal sugar to keep you fueled throughout the day. Perfect for when you're on the go, these energy pods even come with a built-in spoon for your convenience. So, go ahead and treat yourself to these mouth-watering pods that'll make your taste buds dance. Visit kgfoodco.com, kgfoodco.com to grab your favorite flavors. And now, let's get back to our inspiring guest.
What are some interesting themes you've noticed in these different places, all the way from Florida to California? How does the country change when it comes to whether it's the environment, whether it's the people, whether it's the culture?
It's the news media. Okay, so the news media on the East Coast tells you, stay home, don't travel, don't visit your neighbor, fear the grocery store, all of that. Stay home, stay home, stay home. You get out here to the California, the West Coast, and you watch the news media in some areas, most areas, I should say, Some areas are different, but most areas that I've watched the news have all said the same thing. Get out of your house. Go explore. Don't stay home. Go visit your neighbor. Take your neighbor to the theater. Go do something. Visit your farmer's market. Support your local, shop or whatever. And on the East Coast, it's fear-mongering news. On the West Coast, it's go out and explore.
Man, you're like all over the place now. How do you think about all of this stuff? What's your interpretation?
Travel as much as possible. Just go and explore. If you stay home and fear your neighbor, fear your shadow, all that stuff, it just develops into depression. It develops into social anxiety. Who wants to live like that? I don't. That's why I left Vermont. I spent almost 40 years living my entirety of my life in Vermont, and never really experiencing America, except for a majority of the East Coast, and that's it. This adventure that I'm on, I'm not getting rides. I'm not hopping on an airplane. I'm not in a boat. I'm literally doing these miles. I'm not cheating anywhere. And like the ride that I took from Las Vegas to Phoenix, and then from halfway between Phoenix back to Las Vegas, the miles that I get in a car because I decided to take a detour, I don't count those miles. So the 4,300 miles that I've hit so far are the 4,300 miles that I've conquered on my own. My tires show the wear and tear. My body shows the wear and tear. I was 285 pounds when I started this journey. I'm 220 pounds now. What
was your favorite place among all of these places? I know it's kind of maybe
Moab,
like
Utah.
Oh, well, that was fast. Why is that?
Yeah, Moab, Utah. I'll retire there.
Okay.
Moab, Utah offers four-wheel driving, mountain biking, bike packing if you want to, whitewater rafting, tubing, and it doesn't just stop there. You've got every restaurant and bar, police official, fire department. The entirety of the city are just awesome. The tourists are cool. The bike shops are amazing. The outfitter stores, just every aspect that you think you'd have a problem, and there is none. Moab, Utah is just a phenomenal city that I highly recommend anyone to go and travel to, whether it be summer or winter. I haven't been there for winter, so I don't really know for sure, but for what I experienced in the summertime, it's got to match what's in the winter. And there's skiing and snowboarding in the wintertime. So how could you not go wrong? It's just all around hiking, biking, running. You basically live in a city where you can just do anything and stay fit doing it.
How do you handle social challenges? Like, as in, I'm thinking in the lines of, let's say if somebody wants to do something similar to what you're doing, like explore the world, So when they go to a new place, whether it's a new city or a new state, how do they handle this sort of challenge?
I look at traveling, especially now with this whole journey, is that I look at it as a means of kind of like a crocodile. Crocodile sits in the water, and a crocodile is an opportunist. He's not a predator, he's an opportunist. He waits for items to come along, and then he snatches them and all that stuff. But for me, I'm an opportunist. When I enter a city, I just kind of sit and wait and hang around, and when people notice the bike, they start asking questions about the bike. I hand them a business card, or they take pictures of the bike itself with me in the picture, and they're so intrigued about the story, and they just love the journey. And from the East Coast to the West Coast, I could sit at a gas station without any issue, without any problem. I'm not even holding a sign, no sign of, hey, I need money or any of that. By the time I leave the gas station, I'd have between $100 and $200 in my pocket. from the people that have donated because they love the idea of what I'm doing.
That's awesome, man. You're basically becoming a bit of a symbol here that is inspiring other people to take some initiative and do something. Right. So if I were to sort of distill everything that you're doing over here, what are some key lessons or key messages that you would like to share with everybody who's listening? And how can they expand themselves, even if it's like a small step, towards being more explorative or seeking some adventure?
If you're overweight, if you're not healthy, the best route would be, in my opinion, is to get an electric bike and slowly start working your way with the electric bike of traveling around and stuff, and then kind of work your way to a pedal assist bike, and then work your way to an actual hardcore bike like I have that isn't powered by gas or electricity, and go for it from there. I love it. I'm a guy, I've never biked except for when I was a kid. I've never taken on an adventure. I've never really done anything to this extreme. And if you have the want and then you have the will, I mean, anything's possible.
So what about your mental state when you were working versus right now after a lot of these miles, and how's your personality evolved as well?
I would have never thought myself to sleep in a tent and camp next to businesses or behind people's houses, or taking showers in completely strangers' homes, or any of that. I would never even had imagined that to be possible. There is a website called warmshowers.org, and Warm Showers, you pay $30 as a lifetime member, and then it's like $20 a year or something like that for the app. They're right now, I've been in communication with them. They're updating their app and they're updating their website to be a little bit more advanced than what it's been for like the last 20 years. The website is offered to cyclists only. So if you're on a skateboard, or if you're a homeless man on the street or whatnot, and you try and show up at these people's houses without a bicycle or bike packing gear, they will not allow you into their home, and then they will actually report you to the Warm Showers company, and then they'll get banned from it. But so it's only open for cyclists. And I mean, when I got to Arizona is where I learned more about Warm Showers and how much of an awesome opportunity it is to join it. And all through California, for the most part, I've stayed at probably 20 some odd Warm Showers hosts, one being in Santa Cruz being the best of them so far. It was a 3-story house, kind of like a condominium type thing, and gated entry and all that stuff. And the owners weren't even there for the entire week that I was there because it was raining. They weren't there, and incredible time. I mean, I was their first tenant to the Warm Showers app, so I kind of set the scale a little high for the next guy that shows up, and the next female, because it's a vacation home, but it's also his daughter's home for when they get back from college from on the East Coast. So I went a little above and beyond. I cleaned the refrigerator, I cleaned the dishwasher because something was wrong with it and it wasn't working. So I cleaned the interior out and all the dishes, organized the kitchen, and then took the garbage out and did a bunch of other things. And when he showed up for my departure, he's like, "Man, you took the trash out." I was like, "Yeah, I was kind of bored, you know." He's like, "This is incredible, man. This is great. I love that you're here. And oh man, what a great time." And you know, but just incredible meeting that kind of opportunity, and knowing that there's that kind of opportunity out there for cyclists and bike packers and so on, that there's a thriving community for people on two wheels.
What other resources or tools are available for someone who would want to take a similar path?
Fire station.
Interesting.
Not so much out here in California because of the homeless population, but a majority of the states in the U.S. will offer you a place to stay, whether it be inside the garage with the fire trucks or your own room, like I had in Bloomfield, New Mexico. And the other one is if you're running out of water and you desperately need water, stop at a fire station. A fire station will donate you water. And if they just cooked food, sometimes they'll even invite you in to sit down and have breakfast. They'll invite you in to have lunch. They'll invite you in to have dinner. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes.
That's crazy, man. That's so awesome. You know, you're bringing a little bit of a humanity back in the human aspect here, aren't you? We get told all the time on news and on media, and we get people get dehumanized all the time, but it's always nice to see that there's compassion, empathy, a sense of adventure, and this drive to give back.
Middle America still exists.
Middle America.
Definitely tell you that. Middle America still exists. Middle America is Americans who are patriots. They still stand for the country. They still support the country. They still believe in freedom and the pledge of the allegiance and all of that. And if you are in need of a bed to sleep on in Middle America, they are willing to help you out. They are willing to give you a plate of food. And if you request that you'd like to work, they'll find something for you to do to get some work, to either put some money in your pocket, to go and buy some water or some food, and then you're off the next day, or you're off the next week, or you stick around. I mean, it's that's what Middle America is. It's where people still believe in the Constitution. They still support it. They still love America. And full on, this is here. It's available. You just have to know about it to be able to seek it out.
You know, you've inspired me to be more compassionate. I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but with every person I talk to on the podcast, I learn something from them, and I will do my part and do as much as possible to help to the best of my abilities as well. Which brings me to a very not interesting, but to the pretty much close to the final question here, is that how can people support you and find you?
So I have a website, fatbikeamerica.com, fatbikeamerica.com. I am on YouTube, but on YouTube I'm still stuck in Texas, because anything west of Texas during the pandemic, all fast food chains revamped their interiors. There's a reason the doors were locked. There's a reason why you weren't allowed to go inside. It wasn't because you had to wear a mask or any of that garbage. It was the fact that they were revamping the interiors of their restaurants so that they got rid of the power outlet. You cannot charge your equipment at a fast food restaurant anymore and use their Wi-Fi. Anything west of Texas, anything east of Texas, it still exists. You can go into a McDonald's, you can plug in your phone, you can use the Wi-Fi, you can sit there, have a meal, drink soda, and do your stuff and go. Anything west of Texas, and the whole world changes.
That's crazy, man. We'll definitely send you some traffic, send people, and anybody who's listening, please support this man. And above all, whenever you see somebody who is on a journey, who is compassionate, a good human being, always support them. That's what keeps humanity alive. That's what keeps our country and the people moving forward. It connects us all together. So I really appreciate it, Michael. Thank you so much for being on this show. We would be happy to do what we can to help you as well. So thank you.
I just real quick to mention, I have a Patreon, I have Instagram, I have Facebook. A majority of my images go to my Instagram. I have a coffee app. So on Patreon, I put my videos before I put them on YouTube, and kind of like a way for people to view it before it goes live for the rest of the world. And the same with my coffee app is I just put all my pictures on there. pictures that no one's seen before, like scenery and stuff, Bryce Canyon, Zion, all those locations. Slowly I'm updating my website to include a blog, and that will basically tell the story like I've been telling on the podcast here. And
I see it. By the way, all of this, the Patreon and the Coffee app, everything will be included in the show notes. And Coffee, by the way, as I just found out in a second ago, is KO-FI, Coffee. So, but yeah, we'll include every single thing that you mentioned and all the links that are on your website as well. We'll put it into the show notes. Please click them and help support Michael's journey towards just like this inspirational journey that is really helping touch the lives of many, many people across the country. We've been through a lot, and this is the kind of inspiration we need in our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed our captivating conversation with Michael Buxton. Get ready for our next episode where we'll be diving into the world of global health with an extraordinary guest, Dr. Eliza Dunn. Dr. Dunn is an emergency medicine physician and medical toxicologist, and she will be sharing her insights on addressing public health challenges and making a sustainable impact. Don't miss this inspiring conversation coming up next week. Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to our Energize, Explore, Enjoy podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. See you next week.